What type of an education system can develop students as free souls? Or what are the characteristics of an education system that can develop students as independent beings? These are questions that we will briefly respond to in this presentation. So first, we can say that an education for free souls is basically an approach to education that focuses on developing a sense of freedom, creativity, independent thinking, self-expression, and nurturing one's true potential. We can also say that an education for free souls is an education that can develop or that should develop students as independent beings. How can students be independent beings? They can be independent beings when the education system can foster their autonomy, their self-reliance or relying on themselves, their critical thinking skills, and an education system that can make students responsible for their thoughts and actions, and an education system that can make students, that can enable students to make informed decisions and decisions based on their own thinking and judgment. So this is the general definition or understanding of education for free souls. Now, what are the main characteristics of such an education system that can develop students as free souls? So, the first main characteristic is that generally such an education system should be student-centered, where the learning is student-centered. There are two aspects to this one. The first one is that there should be personalized learning environment. And what is that? That actually means that the educational process should be tailored, keeping in view the individual needs of the students, their interests, their abilities, and their learning styles and speed. So as we know that students have different abilities, different variety of interests, and they have various learning styles and various learning speeds. Or you can say the pace of their learning is various. So that is why an education system that keeps this personalized approach to the process of teaching and learning will be something that can lead to the development of students as free souls. Secondly, generally free souls are active learners. So encouraging action, doing, encouraging discussions and negotiations, encouraging decision making, independent decision making, and encouraging problem solving. So an education system that does these things will be something that we can consider it will be useful for developing students as free souls. Second, critical thinking and problem solving is one of the main focus of education for free souls. So an education system that develops the critical thinking and problem solving skills of students will have these two main aspects. First, it should be inquiry based. So the teaching learning processes in that educational environment will be inquiry based, where there will be encouragement for thinking, for questioning, for researching, and for finding solutions to problems on the part of the student. Secondly, real world problem solving is extremely involved. So such an education system will create an environment where students will involve in real world issues, in understanding real world issues around them in the environment, in the application of knowledge rather than just memorizing facts, and in linking school with life. So such an education system where the school life or the school activities of the students are actually linked with life, with their life, their day-to-day life, or their life outside the school. That is something that will develop students as free souls. Next, education for free souls will also have this aspect of developing students' self-management skills. So again, it is extremely important for independent souls, for free souls, to be able to manage themselves. And that actually means to manage their time and to organize themselves, and also to make self-assessment in order to manage their thoughts and their actions. So time management actually means that there should be effective time management training in the schools. Schools should enable students to set goals, to organize themselves, and to be disciplined in order to achieve those goals in a systematic and scientific manner. Secondly, self-assessment is extremely important for students to be able to self-manage. And so this actually means that there should be self-reflection, reflection on their learning. What are they learning? Why are they learning? What are the problems in their learning, and so on. Secondly, students should be able to identify areas of their improvement. What can they improve? What are their shortcomings, and what are the ways to in order to improve those areas. Setting goals and getting goals again is very important. And lastly, they should be able to assess themselves in terms of taking ownership for their learning. So these are important self-management skills that should be taught in educational institutions that aim at developing students as free souls. Next, encouraging creativity and innovation is extremely important for developing students as free souls. So encouraging creativity has two aspects. First, project-based generally learning. Project-based learning is something that helps in developing creativity, encouraging creativity and innovation. So project-based learning basically gives students skills in initiating and carrying out projects on their own, taking initiatives and making self-corrections when they make mistakes, for example. Secondly, entrepreneurial skills, thinking skills are extremely important. And so this aspect actually means that schools or educational institutions should teach students entrepreneurial thinking, and that actually means identifying opportunities for growth, for developing, for caching their skills and abilities, taking calculated risks, and learning from failures. So these are the things that education for free souls will have. Next, life skills and practical knowledge. So again, we need to think whether our educational institutions, our schools, develop the real life skills and practical knowledge of students or not. If they are doing it, then we can say that these schools develop students as free, independent beings or as free souls. But if they're not doing this, now life skills, important life skills actually include financial literacy, for example. Students need to be financially independent, or they need to learn skills in order to become financially independent in their future. And so educating students for finance management, for budgeting, for example, their own budgeting, their fee budgeting, investments and financial independence. Again, this is something that should be initiated at the school level, but these skills should be particularly focused on the higher education level, such as the college and university level. Next, communication and collaboration is extremely important as a practical life skill. So it is important that schools in particular, but educational institutions in general, should develop the communication and collaboration skills of students. For developing strong communication skills is extremely important in the modern world. Team building and team working, collaborations, these are things that need to be developed in order for students to become independent thinkers and independent beings. Ethical and moral development, again, is extremely important for developing students as independent beings or as free souls. Ethics is an extremely important aspect of our life, and therefore it is the responsibility of the educational institutions to develop the ethical and to develop students in terms of their ethical and moral characteristics. So for example, one important aspect of it is exposing students to character education, developing their integrity, their empathy, their responsibility, sense of responsibility among students, and independent consciousness, which actually means helping them think independently and act in line with their conscience or in line with their moral considerations. Next, global citizenship is extremely important for making students independent and free souls. In many cases, there are education systems that create prejudices against other, for example, other nations or other social or political entities. So global thinking is extremely important for students to become independent beings. Similarly, cultural diversity, developing a sense of cultural diversity and inclusivity is extremely important, and developing the broader horizons on life is extremely important for developing them as independent beings. Now, the last one is mentorship and guidance. Now, this is something extremely important for educational institutions to have a system of mentorship and guidance for students, to make them independent beings, to make them free souls. So the role of the teacher is very important, and the teachers should focus on their work or on their role as teachers or as guides rather than as directors or information stores. So they should not consider students as empty boxes that should be filled with information, but as living, thinking beings who need guidance and who need, support and encouragement rather than just a store of information or direction. Secondly, peer learning, extremely important. That in our educational institutions there should be peer learning. So it's not just the teacher who is the source of all learning or all knowledge, but students should have this opportunity to collaborate, to cooperate with each other in terms of learning, and to be independent but also to be interdependent in terms of cooperation, in terms of thinking, in terms of asking questions, in terms of supporting each other in the process of learning. Towards the end, I would like to read out a very beautiful verse by Allama Muhammad Iqbal, the national poet of Pakistan, who says, शिकायत है मुझे या रब, शिकायत है मुझे या रब, खुदावंदाने मकतब से सबक शाही बच्चों को दे रहे हैं खाकबाजी का. So a rough translation of that is that I complain to God about those teachers, those educators who give lessons of dependence, lessons of slavery to students who should be independent and who should make their own decisions and who should be free souls. So with that, again, the very aim of this particular presentation was to highlight the importance of education in terms of developing students as free souls, as independent beings, and the characteristics that make such an education for free souls is one of the most important responsibilities of educational institutions.